Picture this. You spend 7 years watering a fruit tree, protecting it from frost, talking to it like a neighbor, and then one late spring freeze shows up and takes everything. 7 years, gone overnight. That's the bet most people don't realize they're making when they follow the standard advice of just plant fruit trees. Here at Growvia, we don't do slow bets, we do smart ones. What if I told you there's a category of plants that starts feeding you in 2 years, survives temperatures that kill hardwood trees, and produces more calories per square foot than most things in your garden, including those trees you've been babying? They're called high-yield perennial shrubs, and most people have never heard of the best ones. Today, I'm breaking down 9 specific varieties, ranked by caloric return, resilience, and real-world productivity that will change the way you think about growing food. If you're serious about food security, or you just want your land to actually produce, stay with me. This one's going to shift your perspective. Before we get into it, if you're new here, Growvia is where we talk practical, productive growing. Hit subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And drop a comment right now. Do you already grow any of these? I want to know where you're starting from. Chestnut, number 1. Hazelnut, the living oil well. Let's start with what might be the single highest value calorie crop you can put in the ground today, the hazelnut bush. While everyone else is waiting 15 years for walnut trees to mature, the hazelnut, specifically the American hybrids, starts producing in 3 to 4 years, and what it produces is extraordinary. 1 pound of hazelnuts contains roughly 2,800 calories. That's a full day of energy in your hand. In a real food security scenario, people don't struggle from a lack of vitamins. They struggle from a lack of fat and protein. The hazelnut fixes both. The genetics on some hybrid varieties are almost unbelievable. Certain cold climate strains can survive -50 degrees Celsius. These aren't fragile ornamentals. They're engineered by nature for punishment. They're wind-pollinated, so no bees required. Plant them as a windbreak and they stop the wind and drop protein. That's dual-function land use. Mature yield? 10 to 25 pounds per bush per year for up to 30 years. That's potentially 750 pounds of calorie-dense food from a single plant over its lifetime. Stored dry, the nuts last up to a year at room temperature. No electricity, no freezer. The only real competition? Squirrels. They know a good investment when they see one. Cherry, number 2. Nanking cherry. First fruit, fast return. If the hazelnut is your long-term asset, the Nanking cherry is your fast mover. This Asian bush cherry doesn't ask for patience. It often fruits the very next year after planting. In early spring, it explodes with white blossoms before almost anything else is woken up. Then it delivers buckets of tart, deeply flavored cherries that blow commercial fruit out of the water. The reason you've never seen them at the store? They're too soft to ship. That's your advantage as a home grower. The Nanking thrives in harsh, dry conditions, prairie winds, drought, poor drainage. It doesn't need grafting. It grows true from seed, meaning you can replant from your own harvest indefinitely. That's generational self-sufficiency from one bush. Expect 10 to 20 pounds per mature bush in a concentrated 2-week harvest window, which is actually ideal if you're making juice, jam, or wine. 1 harvest event, 1 processing session. Done. The bush tops out around 6 feet, so you can pack several into a small space and still pick everything from the ground. It's a hedge that earns its rent. Chestnut, number 3. Goumi berry, the plant that pays you twice. Most plants take from your soil. The Goumi berry gives back to it. This is a nitrogen-fixing shrub. It pulls nitrogen from the air and deposits it directly into the root zone, essentially fertilizing itself and everything around it. Plant heavy feeders like tomatoes nearby and watch them explode without a bag of fertilizer in sight. The berries themselves are striking, bright red with silver speckles, and the flavor is somewhere between rhubarb and cherry. They ripen early summer, filling the gap when most other fruits are still green. The Goumi is also shade-tolerant, meaning it thrives in the understory where other plants won't grow. Nutritionally, it contains lycopene at concentrations up to 18 times that of tomatoes. The seeds are edible and protein-rich. You consume the whole berry. A mature bush yields 8 to 15 pounds annually, while simultaneously building the soil around it. That's the compounding interest of a productive food system. 1 plant, 2 returns. Chestnut, number 4. Honeyberry, cold climate's first harvest. If you're in a cold climate, the honeyberry is non-negotiable. This is a domesticated honeysuckle, native to the boreal forests of Russia and Siberia, that produces blue, oblong berries tasting like a hybrid of blueberry and raspberry. But the flavor isn't the headline. The timing is. Honeyberries ripen weeks before strawberries. In a northern garden, they are often the very first fresh fruit of the season. The psychological and nutritional value of that alone is significant. The flowers tolerate -7 degrees Celsius without crop loss. A late frost that would devastate your apple harvest doesn't even register to this plant. The thin-skinned berries are so delicate they're impossible to ship commercially, which means the only way to eat them fresh is to grow them yourself. Antioxidant content? 3 times that of blueberries. Some documented Siberian bushes are over 50 years old and still producing heavily. New cultivars reach 10 to 15 pounds per bush by year 5, with a shallow root system that doesn't compete aggressively with neighbors. Pair them with blueberries for matched soil needs and a double harvest timeline. Chestnut, number 5. Rosa rosica, the fortress that feeds. Sometimes your food system needs to defend itself. Rosa rosica does exactly that. This isn't a garden rose. It's a living wall of thorns that will stop deer, dogs, and uninvited guests.
But the real value comes after the flowers, in the form of rose hips the size of cherry tomatoes, packed with one of the most concentrated sources of vitamin C on Earth. A small handful equals the vitamin C of a full bag of oranges. In any scenario where supply chains struggle, that's not decoration. That's your immune system's insurance policy. The hips hang on the bush deep into winter, ripening sweeter after the first frost. A mature bush produces 2 to 4 pounds of hips annually, and every part is usable. Petals in salads, seeds for skin oil, hips for tea, syrup, and jam. It thrives in salt spray, poor soil, and neglect. It never rots, needs no maintenance, and actively produces food year-round. Barbed wire can't do that.
Number 6. Serviceberry, the civilization sustainer. Before grocery stores, before supply chains, there was pemmican, and at its core was the serviceberry. Indigenous peoples and fur traders used this fruit to make the original shelf-stable survival food, a dense mix of dried meat, fat, and dried serviceberries that lasted for years without refrigeration. The berry looks like a blueberry, but tastes nuttier, almost almond-like, because of its small, flavor-packed seeds. At roughly 25% sugar by weight, it dries into concentrated energy cakes with a shelf life measured in years, not months. A mature bush yields 15 to 30 pounds of berries annually, ripening gradually over several weeks for an extended harvest. It's ornamental, drought-tolerant, and disease-resistant. It also improves wildlife habitat, which matters if you're building a full food system, not just a garden. The downside? Birds love it as much as you do. Net it or plant enough to share. Red number 7. Goji berry, complete nutrition in a dried raisin. Most fruit is sugar and water. The goji berry is neither. It's one of the only fruits containing all 9 essential amino acids, a complete protein source from a plant. That's rare. It's also naturally drought-tolerant, prefers poor sandy soil, and thrives on neglect. Overwater it and you get leaves. Undertreat it and you get fruit. Dried goji berries store indefinitely at room temperature. No freezer, no canning. A mature bush yields 7 to 10 pounds fresh per season, reducing to 2 to 3 pounds dried. Those dried berries contain 13% protein by weight, plus iron, zinc, and B vitamins. They're self-fertile. One plant produces fruit. They start in year 2. They live for decades. The only management challenge is their vigor. If branches touch the ground, they root. Contain them or they'll colonize. But that same unstoppable energy means they're nearly impossible to kill. Grape number 8. Jostaberry, the thornless powerhouse. This one is a triumph of plant breeding, a complex hybrid of blackcurrant and 2 gooseberry species, engineered to keep the best of both and eliminate the worst. No thorns, no fungal disease, large fruit, vigorous growth. The Jostaberry is the most efficient picking experience in the berry world. The flavor evolves as it ripens, starting tart like a gooseberry, finishing deep and complex like a blackcurrant. The berries are roughly 3 times the size of a standard currant, meaning faster harvests and less processing time. A mature bush reaches 5 to 6 feet, yields 10 to 15 pounds annually for 20-plus years, tolerates partial shade, and is largely unknown to North American pests, meaning zero spray, zero pressure. You get European production output with none of the European pest problems. High vitamin C, high anthocyanins, the same dark antioxidants found in blueberries, but in greater concentration. If you want high-volume jam and preserve production without the blood sacrifice of thorny bushes, this is your plant. Blue number 9, Chicago Hardy Fig, the Calorie King. We close with the heavyweight. Figs are calorie royalty, 249 calories per 100 gram when dried, more than 3 times the energy of fresh fruit. They taste like honey and jam in fruit form. Roman legions marched on them, and now, thanks to the Chicago Hardy variety, you can grow them in zone 5 and 6 climates that would have been unthinkable for figs a generation ago. Here's the mechanism that makes it resilient. In a brutal winter, the above-ground wood may die back. On most fruit plants, that's a death sentence. On the Chicago Hardy, the root system pushes up new shoots in spring, sets fruit on that new wood, and ripens a full crop before fall frost. It resets like a perennial vegetable. Almost zero pests in North America, no spraying needed, self-fertile, ripens gradually over weeks, giving you weekly harvests rather than one chaotic surge. A northern bush can produce 50 to 100 figs per season, and in a warmer microclimate that can double. The leaves can be dried for tea, the fruit stores as dried bars. The plant is, calorie for calorie, the most productive food you can grow in a northern climate. So there you have it, 9 plants that outperform fruit trees in speed, resilience, and real nutritional output. Not one of them needs a decade of patience. Most of them start working in 2 to 3 years. If I had to start from zero tomorrow, I'd put in hazelnuts for fat and protein, honeyberries for the first harvest, and a Chicago Hardy fig if my zones it. Those 3 alone would change the productivity of any piece of land. Now here's what I want from you. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 9 you're adding to your land this season. I read every single one. If this gave you something useful, share it with someone who's planning a food garden. They need to see this before they spend money on fruit trees. And if you want a full growing guide on any of these individually, the soil prep, spacing, companion plants, everything, let me know in the comments. Hit 100 comments on this video and I'll build that series. Subscribe to Growvia if you haven't already. New videos drop every week and we're just getting started. Plant smart, grow forward. I'll see you in the next one.